I don't have nothing.
You got a hand, you could pet me. She did something really funny yesterday. I was down at this house and we're turning the water on because it was winterized, and me and my neighbor were turning the water in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Pam. I need to talk to you about Cerner Pro.
Okay.
Because I have Sean and he's supposed to be out tomorrow.
Sean Fitzhenry, yeah.
And I changed it because I'm not sure how this is going, and information isn't clear incoming between Farmers Insurance and the agent Michael and.
You have insurance?
Yeah, I don't think it's helping. No. Oh, no. Because nobody in Michigan has flood insurance.
And inland flooding is not covered in the policy, and inland water, unless you have a sewer. There's a slight possibility of coverage if you have sewer and septic coverage for your pumps, if you have pumps.
I have pumps and I have 2 new ones as of last year.
If you're in a floodplain, you got a mortgage, you're supposed to have insurance.
You have a mortgage, yes.
I mean, I don't have a mortgage.
Congratulations on that, but.
Surplus been great so far. I mean, I got in early and so they started yesterday. They're finishing up their work today, I think.
I still have water leaving the building.
Oh, then shouldn't have come in.
Well, I know, and he said, well, I can come in anyway, and I said, but I don't have, it's still wet.
No, Sean will tell you, he doesn't, not going to have in until you're done with the water.
Yeah.
And the crawl space or the basement, that's all.
It's a basement.
Okay, that's gotta be empty.
1,200 square feet of.
I don't know if we're gonna get a big crowd tonight.
It's awfully nice evening out.
Well, some hot dog fry going on for someplace else for the Humane Society.
Zenco.
One of the people went off to that.
Yeah, put, you know, the ones you got.
Contract says they can't just sell it to somebody else and.
We'll give it a few extra minutes, see what shows up.
Well, we'll get the water before you have them come out, because then you're just wasting money.
Well, he said he didn't mind, he could just add extra.
You didn't have any water damage, did you?
That's not how
No,
much it is.
it's about something.
He's a guy.
We got a stream behind the house,
Yeah,
we're
no,
40 feet up on that.
We talked about it.
And the floodplain wanders off the other direction towards the river, so
Mhm.
we get water, it's biblical.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're real interesting real fast.
When I'm a dog lover, I have 3. I just got a pup about 3 weeks ago. He was supposed to be a founder at Tractor Supply in the back of the pickup truck in a car. For 40 the dogs were going. And I'm like, oh no, come on. They're going $25 rehoming. I had 20 in cash. Yeah, take 20. And I'm like, yes. So now I have a Luki,
What's your name from the west?
amongst my 2
The lady with the spaniel or the setters?
Lindy?
Lindy,
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun.
talk to her.
Not fun, but
That- I've been talking to her a lot. We've been trying to make puppies. Yeah. She took
They're taking.
her female, and she was doing the progesterone testing on her, and she should have been Saturday and Sunday, and she
So
could not have acted less in heat.
Island Street between McMaster.
Different subject, kind of. I got a short hair that I bought from a kennel in northwest Minnesota a couple years
Because she's
ago.
got 2 places.
No, more than that. She was 6 months old. We got her. And
Yeah, she's up.
she'll be 5 this October. But they said it was a short hair, but as she's getting older, back to her hair on the back, it looks like a Chesapeake Bay.
Huh.
I mean, it's curly and thick.
How
And her
big?
tail is about that big around.
Huh.
You ever had experience with short hairs?
Getting like that? No.
I'm gonna give her a DNA test.
Let's see if it's something. Yeah. See if something slipped in there. So yeah, this female, she wouldn't act like she was in, and she's in heat. I mean, she looked like she's in heat. The progesterone test said she's would not act. The male dogs thought she was in, would have nothing to do with it. So finally, then Monday, I had to work Monday. Lindy took my dog and her female, went down to Schultz and Owasso, and they collected him and did transcervical insemination on her. So we'll see.
Bought her a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Put on some music.
Mm-hmm. Light some candles.
we're down at the house and we're getting ready to turn the water on, which means someone's got to kneel. Larry's going to kneel down, and we're looking for something to kneel on.
Mm-hmm.
And one of Rosemary's gardening pads had floated into this log jam. That's the water's mostly down, but I couldn't walk to it because there was 6 inches of water between me and that. And Rocket's running around there. And Rocket, go over there. Go over there. And I get her to go over there and say, get that blue pad. And I point at it. And I go get it. And she walks up and she starts sniffing it. And she keeps going. I'm like, when she's sniffing, I'm like, fetch it up, bring it here. Nothing. She goes and starts sniffing other stuff. I turn around and start talking to Larry, and we're doing this and that. And then I turn around again, and she had brought it and dropped it at my feet.
When you quit looking.
Yeah.
I'll do it, but not because you told me.
Yeah, exactly. This
I
female
don't know how
dog.
she figured it out. It was great.
No, there's coffee and some kind of cookie over there.
What's the name of that?
You want it?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good right now. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway, you got a DNA test to recommend, or?
As far as like what's the one everybody's
Because
doing?
that kennel, they've raised Chesapeakes and short hairs.
Oh, geez.
So I'm thinking,
That really does make you wonder.
yeah, because your tail is, I mean, it's that big around.
I think Embark is the one most people are using now.
Is that, you can do that yourself?
Yeah, you order a kit, and I think you can get them off like Amazon and stuff. Hmm. Makes the dog smell good.
I'm telling you, I'm pulling off me and off the dog.
Already?
Oh yeah.
I had one today on the inside of my pants.
Speaking of,
Is it like right on the water? Oh, yeah, I think I've seen it. Yeah. Yeah.
This is my brother when I was casting. This is fall. So he had it really.
Oh.
Have you ever had a snake bite?
me personally?
No, the puppy.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Small crowd tonight.
Yeah, I've seen a number of them.
We're gonna start, I guess. You want two people coming in? Okay. All right.
There are. Of course there are.
Yeah, I've not had a snake bite I've had to treat in Michigan.
Museum
No,
dog.
No.
that's good.
Yeah. But yeah,
First time
I actually lost a dog of my own to a snake bite.
She's the first.
Had a horse that was snake bit. Got bit in the tongue. Uh-huh.
Just like that.
So you're aggressive?
Yeah. Yeah, I got bit in the tongue, and I mean the tongue was like
got pointers.
swelled up like that big around.
On the dog.
No, it's the horse. Got bit on the tongue, and yeah, they had to do a partial tongue amputation on it out at Oklahoma State.
Yep.
A lot. And a little bit.
We've done a little bit. We haven't hunted on,
Not a snake fan.
on the riverside road.
Hmm.
Don't like that.
But we go back off on Central Lake, or on Otsego County. Yeah, so, yeah.
So benefit is life.
Huh?
We're actually getting a good response on the live stream.
That's what you're saying, yeah. I got,
Okay.
Where I shop anyways.
Tickets for the fall
Kind
thing.
of takes a bit out of it when you're not.
Yep,
eating.
Roth will take it for the fall gizmo.
I started.
So many birds.
You gotta put in my cheater so I can read
I
it.
started
Okay.
hunting.
I've got my safety glasses I wear when I'm hunting now have readers built into them.
No, I just had the second on operation for cataract,
Uh-huh.
so I'm in between glasses, so I got maybe magnifiers, I can see about 3 feet.
And you drive like that, that's great.
Well, yeah, I'm 3 feet, I can see okay without the glasses.
Oh, okay.
Okay. 8 weeks ago. No, this was a quadruple separation about 2 years ago. This is a knee replacement from 7 weeks ago.
That's amazing. My wife's had both of them. That was it. 7 weeks she wasn't hopping around yet.
I'm doing pretty good.
Don't worry about it. They have her
this week.
Where'd you have it?
Yeah, on the 20 next door.
Toski.
There's that
Yeah.
really red.
No, I've been getting out in the woods. We're
That's
woodcock banding right now.
I see.
And so I've done 2.5 miles twice
Good there.
this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is good. It is good. I'm not taking
Well,
the,
they haven't paid attention.
I'm
but I
not getting
didn't
like
see
in
it
a
before
hardcore
I moved
storm
into
damage
it.
area.
And I paid attention
We're getting
to the
ticks.
pictures, I would have seen that
I've been following it.
walls
We're
were
really
18
supposed to
cut
get
18
hammered
inches
with
above the
ticks this
floor.
year.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. A lot of it's like a fair amount of snow.
You
It's
know.
unusual for North Branch to go up 8 inches. Really.
Yeah, I used on the store.
I don't doubt that. I was looking today at the various species of ticks that
Oh,
carry
like
on
80.
North Branch. And we have
And I stayed, I
one
owned
of them
that
was
store
kind of
like
getting black,
19 years.
black-legged ticks and kind of
Between
moved
81 and
south,
2000.
but still moving forward. They're gonna get here. They're probably here right now.
Okay, you ready?
I think one of them is on.
All right. Put a sock in it. We're ready to roll. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the last night of the hot dog season. I think we had a hot dog fry going someplace else, so some of the crowd diverted off to that, but welcome aboard. I'm glad you guys showed up for Scott Smith, Veterinary West Ranch. The president of the Jim Foot chapter of RGS. He's going to talk to us about dog vet.
Yep.
Dog first aid and he's a vet, good vet. We have the opener this weekend, it's Saturday. And when it starts, what, 10 in the morning? Registration at 9.
Yeah, sure.
Registration at 9, and we'll have a leaky waiter race. You have to make over that, everybody just over my boat ramp, runs over here and waiters. We got some pretty good prizes and stuff. That's about it. We're going to have raffle tickets for the fall event. I got a guided cast and blast. John Nagel's gonna do the fishing part, and then Tim Riley's gonna do the hunting part, and there's a sporting plays around with Paul Frost, who's a certified shotgun instructor. Sporting plays. So with that, turn it over to Scott.
All right. Thank you. So, like you said, my name's Scott Smith. I'm practicing veterinarian down West Branch. I've been down there since 2003. Kind of moved all over the place a little bit. I'm from Southern Ohio. Went to school out in Missouri, bounced around a couple other practices until I ended up kind of hit the point and said, well, instead of taking all my time off and driving to Northern Michigan, why don't I just move to Northern Michigan? So I've been up here since then. So I kind of going to talk about a little bit of a variety of things, this evening. People have questions about things. I'm always happy to take those too. So in addition to being a practicing veterinarian, I'm also president, as he said, of the Jim Foot chapter of the Rough Grouse Society, American Woodcock Society. We're based here in Grayling, Gaylord area. The chapter, we rebooted it in 2024. It died out after 2019 during COVID. Their last event was they had a sporting clay shoot up at Lewiston fall of 2019, right before season, and they kind of folded, and nothing happened, and finally we got the chapter going again, and we're getting things built up. And getting them going pretty good. So I was going to make a couple announcements of some chapter events that we've got coming up for everybody, if anybody's interested. This Saturday, we are having a habitat day, calling it Trees and Trash. And what we're doing is this is part of a big project. We've got some matching funds and a grant from NWTF. And it was like pulling teeth, but we got RGS to put some money in, and it literally was like pulling teeth. But so we've got some RGS money. We've got a lot of National Wild Turkey Federation money. We're doing this in conjunction. It's MUCC. Sounds like this may be one of their last hurrahs, unfortunately. But MUCC is going to be there. Our chapter is going to be there. We're going to have some people from other chapters there. I've got some people, with young man that's trying to get backcountry hunters and anglers going in this part of the state. He's coming out and bringing a few people. So it's going to be a pretty good thing. So what we're doing is We're going to be planting trees, and I don't know how many trees Tim has for us to plant, but it's going to be pretty easy. He already took the tractor out there with auger and pre-dug the holes for us, so it's going to be putting the trees in the holes, putting the dairy dew on them, caging them, staking them, all that fun stuff. And while that's going on, we're going to have another part of the crew. We're going to be running around cleaning up some trash sites. DNR donated a big roll-off dumpster for us that's sitting down at the headquarters there by the interstate, and so we're going to be running around picking up trash. Some of these places you see where people drag their old couch out and throw it in the woods and this and that. We've been trying kind of dropping pins, and unfortunately, after the flooding, I had a couple spots I wanted to hit over in Kalkaska County where it looked like somebody emptied their entire house out in the woods, but we can't get in there, so we've kind of rerouted some stuff. So we're going to be doing that Saturday. Anybody wants to come out, we're meeting up at 8 a.m. at the DNR field office there at Hartwood Pines Road and I-75. We'll work from about 8 till about noon, and then about noon to 1, we're going to kind of socialize, eat lunch, and all that stuff. So anybody wants to come out for that. Next Thursday, we're hosting a woodcock walk up here. Once again, meeting at the DNR office at 7 o'clock. Going to be a little presentation about the American woodcock, life cycle, habitat, what it does, biology, the bird, the whole 9 yards. And then we're going to kind of load up, run down the road, and they've kind of scouted out a spot that there's been some birds that have been singing in. So hopefully get to go out and if not see, at least hear their little dance that they do. So that'll be next Thursday at 7 o'clock. And then we're also then hosting a Birds and Brew at Paddlehard Yard Wednesday, June 10th at 5:30. And these are real nice. It's a dog-friendly venue. Down there in their open yard. I don't know if anybody's been there, but super nice. They do a limited food menu for us, so you can order food if you want. And of course, they've got the bar in there and all that, but it's just not real informal. Sit around, talk about dogs and habitat and bird hunting and fly fishing and whatever else you want to talk about. So that's Paddle Hard Yard. Yeah, June 10th, 5:30. And that's going to be on our Facebook page. So anybody that's interested, we got one of these little squiggly things that you scan, and that'll get you to our Facebook page where you can kind of see what we've got going on and announcements for events and stuff. And then that, of course, is the one to join RGS there. So that's kind of what we've got going on. We're doing a kind of a season kickoff educational event in August. I think it's 8th maybe of August, but anyway, there'll be announcements coming out about that. We're going to have some speakers, kind of do about 3 or 4 hours, and I guess that we're going to be using the conference room at the Artisan Village in downtown Grayling, and then just kind of have an informal, everybody go across the street to Paddle Hard and have lunch and talk and whatnot. So that's coming up too in August. So that's kind of what we've got going on as a chapter. I'm going to run through this real quick. I've never done anything with PowerPoint, and I figured it's time for me to learn. I do enough talks, so I kind of stole one from RGS and did a little adjustments along the way. So of course that's a nice rough grouse there. I never get to see him looking like that, but so RGS AWS, I almost feel like they need to do a little bit of rebranding because the habitat work that we do for rough grouse and for American woodcock benefits so many other creatures. I see so many birds when I'm out there, and I'm not like a hardcore birder or anything like that, but I find them kind of interesting. And you'll see so many different species of birds utilizing the same habitat that these guys do, deer, snowshoe hare, everything. So it's really far more than a hunting organization. It really is a conservation organization and habitat. So of course, rough grouse. This is their native range. Is all of this orange, and you can see, right here, of course, we're boom right there in the middle of it. And it's one of the things that kind of drives me and keeps me involved in conservation and RGS is though I'm up here in Michigan right now, I have killed rough grouse in Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, and Kentucky. And I think Kentucky is the only one of those states that still even has any kind of a season, and I don't think it's much of a season as far as your odds of seeing a bird. When I was out in Missouri, it was marginal. That was when I was in school, and you didn't count flushes per hour; you counted hours per flush out there. So, but all those states, that's all native range for the bird, and it's the way it's going. It's really quite sad. Um, Quaking aspen range. Of course, everybody knows, popples and ruffed grouse go hand in hand, and you can kind of see the native range of that. Once again, the entire state of Michigan is green. Um, the dark color right here is the overlap of the ruffed grouse range and the aspen range, and you can kind of see the interdependence there between aspen and ruffed grouse, because they kind of are right in the center of that. Okay, American woodcock, of course, is a migratory bird. Um, Spring and summer is orange. The yellow is year-round habitat for them. And then this, of course, is wintering grounds for our birds up here that are going south in the wintertime. This next one. If you look at this right here, once again, this is their range, just kind of a different representation of it. All of the orange right there, those states have declared the bird species of greatest concern, which means that they either aren't to the point of needing to be listed as endangered species, or there's not enough data to support them being listed as endangered species, though they think they probably are. And the states that don't have a big orange X on it, just because that state doesn't do that. So as you can see, the little bird's in trouble. So this talks about the diversity forest versus single-aged forests. Um, Single-aged and single tree, it's when I drive around, I hate looking at this monoculture of trees, whether it's hundreds of acres of, well, I'd rather see hundreds of acres of aspen than red pine or jack pine, but these blocks of jack pine, these blocks of red pine. Whereas if you've got a diverse forest, which is what RGS and AWS pushes for, that's going to benefit a large number of species. More species are going to utilize that. Fire resistance is there because you've got some natural fire breaks built in and stuff, as opposed to that big solid thing of pine trees. This is interesting, and this talks about, kind of gets into cutting trees down. I keep forgetting I got a pointer there. Sorry. Um, so down here, you're talking about a new aspen planting right here, or aspen growth, and you're going to start out about 12,000 stem densities per acre. And you can see that number drops as it gets older. You're out here to 30 years, you're down to about 1,000 aspen per acre. And then these lollipop things are other hardwoods. And you can kind of see, as that aspen gets older, these begin to come into play. And somewhere right in here, there's your breakover, and there's really no aspen left in it, and it's all hardwood. And that's why trees need to be cut down. Plain and simple, is to kind of keep those aspens going as we want them. And this down here just kind of shows the different covers that they use throughout the year. Their nesting cover is going to overlap breeding cover and winter use cover throughout that right there. Okay. Once again, this just shows ruffed grouse like edges. And this right here, to me, you'll see a lot of people that'll talk about, oh, well, you're not going to find grouse just walking down the two track. Well, you kind of are, depending on what's on either side of the two track, because it's a natural disruption. Whether you've got a block between, I've got a cover not real far from here that is actually up against some mature red pine, but then the other part of it is kind of a mixed cover. It's a disruption. It's a break in the cover there, and you're going to find grouse where you have those breaks in the cover. That's what they like. They like edges. Michigan Habitat Achievements. RGS does not do a good enough job getting out there how many projects they're working on. And they've got a lot of projects going in here. Some of their numbers are a little deceptive. Like if we go to the next slide here, you'll see total current habitat project funding in Michigan, $1.9 million. RGS didn't put in $1.9 million. that's projects worth $1.9 million. And some of it's RGS money. Some of it is Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation actually does a lot of work in Michigan, National Wild Turkey Federation, and then a lot of other groups that go on. In fact, there's a $50,000 habitat project funded. Our RGS is partnered with them, but the funding is strictly from RMEF up in the Pigeon right now. And what they have to do is they're allowed to work on grouse habitat with that money if it's within the elk range. Somehow we missed out on getting any of that down here because we're definitely in the elk range down here now. This is the project we're working on right here. $102,000 project. We've got 5 different chapters that have each thrown in whatever it ended up, $32.50 a piece or whatever per chapter. We got $4,500 from RGS from the drummer fund. So $20,000 from RGS went into that 102,000. But then we're basically doing all of the work, us and DNR. We have got a number of areas. There's an area up toward Lewiston that we're working in. There's an area down toward the South Branch we're working in. There's some things that are going to be going on over toward the Manistee that are going to be being built in. And what we're doing is we're putting in these hunter walking trails. And the hunter walking trails kind of give us a way to work cooperatively with the loggers. What we're doing in these is we're taking the logging road in that they used to go in. We're leaving it there, but we're turning it into a walk-in access trail. We're slapping a big old orange gate on it. I'm sure everybody's seen those driving around. Big old orange gate on the end of it. They're coming in and we're tilling up those roads and stuff and planting them in clover largely, which benefits a lot of things, including rough grouse. And then we're rehabbing the log landings, cleaning the log landings up, getting in there with a dozer, getting the stuff this thick off the ground. And then we're going in and doing plantings. And that's where the plantings that we're doing Saturday will be in old log landings. So then those log landings are still there. The log roads are still there. So in 30 years, when this needs to be cut again, we can just open the gates up and say, here you go. And then we go through the same cycle again. We're also going to be doing a little bit of work up in the Little Betsy over that way. So we've got this volunteer day, and then there's going to be another one later in the year to get the trees planted up in the gyms up there. Kind of the goal is, and everybody's noticed that the gyms, and Bruce talked about those here a few weeks back, the grouse enhanced management areas. We don't have one here, and it's because the goal is to make the entire grayling compartment of gyms. And it really almost already is. I mean, we've got this is the heart. I mean, you want to look for grouse habitat. It's hard to drive around and find better grouse habitat or more of it in one area than we've got in this compartment here. So 2021, so the last 4 years, RGS has been involved in 536,000 acres in those states up here, which is kind of the heart of their habitat range for grouse and woodcock. Partnered with other groups and whatnot to try and get that going. Some of it, of course, the states down in here, there's some RGS, some grouse work, but a lot of what you're getting down in here is for woodcock and woodcock migration areas. Just like even downstate here, they do a lot of work, not so much that there's a lot of woodcock that nest downstate, but there are some, but most of it, they're flying through there to get up here. So, you know, pretty big impact when you look at that. Eastern Great Lakes region, and they sent me this one, but it's too darn small to see anything on. And that just kind of shows you some of the different areas and different projects they've got going on. I've got the original of that. I can't even read it. And then a couple numbers I wanted to run by you. Where did I leave that at? Michigan every year. It's kind of true. I mean, it's you need to support these organizations. I mean, they're doing a lot of things. Yeah, we can get out there and we can plant trees, and we don't have to have a national organization to do it, but they're doing things like lobbying and putting pressure and things like that. Did you have something, Rich?
RGS in Michigan or just RGS all over? 'Cause we get a lot of people up here from southern states and other places.
Yeah, our RGS members that live in Michigan is about 1,500, so not very many. So they so about 153,000 is raised in Michigan from those 1,500 members every year, which goes toward RGS. So we make an impact, but you just think about that $35 membership. If every one of those 99,000 people just did that, you could get a lot of work done. And of course, you can't do a slideshow and not put pictures of your own dog in. This is me figuring out how to add stuff into PowerPoint. This was actually in December, right up the hill here. And the interesting thing about this picture is, I didn't know what he was doing. It was not something out there on the land. That's the right all this surrounding stuff. I had to figure maybe moving around here. It's not what's happening. There's a rough grouse right here. Once I got around there, it was roosted in the snow. And not a mark on the snow. So it had been there and it had snowed on it. Um, Snow, we complain about the snow, we gripe about the snow. If you like rough grouse, you need to like snow. We need a lot of snow. The more snow, the better the winter survival is on these birds. 25 degrees, if they don't have snow to roost in, their morbidity goes way, way, way down. So, okay, that's not around here. That's actually Montana. Different type of grouse. And then you got to go home. You got to get cleaned up for the holidays. And then that was actually that's quail. That's Kansas. This is actually one of George Griffith's covers that he talks about in his book. Where we're at here on grouse. And this is back all here. Poor dog has to hang out with the cat. And this is one of my favorite things to see in the wintertime. I love watching grouse tracks in the snow. So anyway, that's enough stuff about RGS and Jim Foote chapter. Anybody have any questions about any of that stuff before I move on?
We're members, so.
Okay, good for you.
Where are the grouse?
Hmm?
I used to be able to look out my back window and see a dozen grouse wandering around the yard. And every time I went in and out of the driveway, there was half a dozen of them. But, I got turkeys now that are up eating on the front deck, but I haven't seen grouse on the property for years.
Yeah, and I've noticed that, and I'll have a lot of covers, and I'm not a scientist, but if I have a cover that's been a good grouse cover, and I start to see more turkeys in it and more consistently turkeys, I move on.
Well, they don't habitat well together.
I don't think it's that they don't habitat well together. I think that the habitat is changing into something that favors the turkeys more, a little bit more mature woods, that kind of thing. So I think the habitat is changing, and I hear that from a lot of people that I've been coming up here and I've hunted this area at the corner of so and so and so and so. We've been hunting that for 20 years. There's just no birds anymore. There's no bird numbers, and I'm like, right there, you told it. You've been hunting it for 20 years. It aged out on you. So I think that a lot of times is it. There's a lot of birds, but I mean you got to move around.
They don't live everywhere.
No, they don't live everywhere, and they don't live everywhere for long
No.
because they need that successional forest, which is what this ice storm created, is a lot of successional forest for us. So I'll crawl through the junk laying on the woods to get in there. And I've been amazed the way they used the blowdowns this winter. They used those just like big giant snow roosts. There was a lot of them underneath those blowdowns this winter when the snow was heavy. So, but yeah, I think the bird numbers are still there. I think that's just as habitat changes, they're in different habitats. So.
We have fairly mature, mostly jack pine on our property, but we've got hawthorn and some other things they can eat, but they come through about 2 weeks every year. We usually see them in the late fall.
Mm-hmm.
They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
And that's
That's because the habitat on our property is not super prime.
right, right. Yeah, it's got its nit, and that's the thing too, is they aren't going to use the same habitat year round. You know, there's very few places that you will have consistent bird numbers throughout the year. I mean, there's covers, and those covers are awesome, but you know, they definitely are gonna, you know, your October covers and your December covers usually are not going to be the same. I hear about 3, 4 years ago, I can't remember which one it was. My October covers worked in December because we didn't have any snow or anything. But yeah, so they're going to use different covers in different times of the year too. So that's the other part of it. And that's the, you know, I always like to say that they are where you find them. And there's a lot of
Sometimes it makes more sense.
I know, I know. I love when I see them walk through the backyard. Not very often, but they will. Um, so anyway, so that's about all I know about grouse. How do I turn this thing off?
Blue button.
The thing looks like power button.
Close again.
Richard.
There you go. Yes.
Two of them does.
What?
Two grouse on them. I was letting you know.
Even the people that, I'm sure.
She's hot spotting.
There was a month ago. It was a month ago. But yeah, I had two across the road from you.
There we go.
Happy to see one.
We were out hunting one day and did the same thing and came back and there was one sitting in my flower box. Raisins in it.
Yeah. Plant geranium.
Mhm. Or you walk and walk and walk and walk, and you don't come up to anything, and you do the big loop, and then you come right back and you flush one 10 yards from the truck. Every time. Every time. So I was going to talk a little bit about first aid, and I've talked about first aid before. And I got to use my first aid kit quite a bit this year, fortunately or unfortunately. Kansas trip was brutal. Kansas is not one of my favorite places in the world. It's just, it's tough. So we went out there with 5 dogs. I had my dog, and I was with 2 other guys that had 2 dogs each. And I got to brag on my dog. We kept fresh dogging him all day long. I'd put him on the ground. They'd each put a dog. We'd go to the next field. I'd put him back. They'd each put a dog. And he was the only dog hunting the last afternoon of the last day. But he also didn't get hurt. So got to use my trusty thumb forceps on that trip that I always talk about, which is one thing that people don't always use, don't always carry with them. Should be down in there. This is another good point. This is the time of year to be thinking about going back through your first aid kits, replenishing things, replacing things that were used, checking on things that are expired, checking on stuff that got lost along the way. Thank you. So, thumb forceps. We had a dog stick a piece of probably Milo leaf or something into the cornea, straight into the cornea. So we had to use this to pull that out of the cornea, and then doctored it the rest of the time we were out there. So that knocked that dog out. I had to use these out in Montana to pull out the little cactus splines, thorns, whatever those are from me. Not the dog. I had to pull them out of my hand. But the dog had one stuck in his feather, and I went to stupid me without a glove on, pulled it off and stuck those in there. So I've had to use these this winter. We had a dog that sliced an ear about this far on a barbed wire fence. So had to use blood stop powder to get the bleeding under control, because anybody's ever seen a cut ear tip, they bleed as bad as a cut tongue does. So you got to use the blood stop powder. But then we had to go actually had to find a vet that had a clinic, because I was like, I don't take surgical kit with me, so, or anesthetic. So use that. The other thing that got used a lot on that same trip is we had a dog that was, I don't have them in here. Oh, they're in my They're my other gear back. Anyway, we had a dog that was out once again hunting in the cut Milo, and came up, blood on her lower leg, and she'd run a Milo stalk up the side of her leg. So we were able to take the boot, um, use the duct tape to keep the boot on, use the non-adhered bandages, use the vet wrap, and he was able to keep hunting her the rest of the trip if we bandaged it and then put the boot on to keep anything from grinding up in there. So we kind of went through and used all of that stuff too. So then the eye ointments, the triple antibiotics, all of those things got used. So the stuff you carry, you actually will use some of these things sometimes. Like I said, either on the person or on a dog. I used my liquid skin. Used that out in Montana. We hunted 11 days, and the toe pads are starting to get a little bit raw. And so each evening when I was back at the rental, I would take and I would put a couple drops of that liquid skin on each little raw spot, let it dry, put another drop on there, let it dry, and he'd be good to go the next day. So, oh, and I split a thumb too in December, and I had to use the stuff there too. So it's carrying the stuff's important, but making sure that it's fresh is also important. Like, vet wrap, for instance, you know, it sits in a bag, sits in the truck, gets hot, gets cold, it kind of gets worthless. So, that's something, a season, if you got a roll you're carrying around with you for a season, it's probably going to be done after that season. So, think about things like that. Go through, check things. Is it still fresh? Okay, my honey, that's another one. My honey packets I always carry in case you get hypoglycemia episode in a dog or a person. You always want to check those. And this one is actually still soft because those tend to get crystallized and get hard on you. So go through, check your kit, make sure you've got everything still that you started out with, make sure everything's fresh, make sure you've replenished what you used up, and put it back in there. So,
Question.
yeah.
Do you take anything? We had a dog almost bleed out once. Artery was cut in the paw.
Mm-hmm.
Barely made it.
Mm-hmm.
Drunk,
Yeah.
bleeding all over the place. But do you take anything that you could potentially use as a tourniquet?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what would you normally use?
I
'Cause
can.
we threw the dog in the box and just went to the vet and
Yeah, you can make, and the thing to remember about a tourniquet is about saving a life, not saving a limb, because you can lose a limb from a tourniquet.
yeah.
So you got to be real careful with them from that standpoint. I find that there's very few things that you can't get to stop bleeding with enough pressure. So the first thing I am going to usually do is grab, and I carry just some 4x4 gauzes, get those on the wound, crank down on that really tight with white tape, get that pressure on there like that. And usually you can get enough pressure on it, especially if you can kind of go across it. If the cut's here, go across it that way and stuff, you can usually get it under control.
The clock stops up, they go in larger cut.
It's not like an arterial bleed, it's not going to. Okay, this is going to be your blood stop. It's a clotting agent, so it's going to give something to clot to, kind of like using the powder stuff when you quick a toenail trimming nails. It's that same kind of idea, but it's a little more, does a little better than that.
This was an artery, and
Yeah, it would wash that.
spent an hour.
It would just,
applying pressure.
yeah, it would wash that stuff right out. So then if you're going to do a tourniquet, one thing I carry. So I keep it in the zipper pocket in my vest, not in the first aid kit. I carry one of the slip leads, just a nylon slip leads, got the little metal ring on the end of it, and that. I carry one of those for two reasons. You can use those to open a conibear trap, so it works good for that. A lot of times, if you're out in the field, a lot of us don't carry a leash or think to carry a leash. You start out from the truck, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere. And okay, now I've got a dog that's injured and I don't have a leash to put it on it and if I need to lead it back. So it's not going to keep trying to hunt when we don't want it to. So I carry one of those. You can use that for a tourniquet. Okay, that's going to work well for a tourniquet. A bootlace can work for a tourniquet. Almost anything can. I like something, larger diameter, like the leash is going to be better, or even a regular leash, you can do that. And then you grab a stick and you twist it down just enough to stop the bleeding, but knowing you may be doing damage to the limb in the process.
There's another, we hit another situation last fall that was life, I think it could have been life threatening. The vet thought it was. But it was, you see tongue cuts
Mm-hmm.
every day.
Mm-hmm.
But we had an artery, cut
Mm-hmm.
under the tongue.
For a blood vessel, I think
Mhm.
it was a blood vessel. His tongue had been bleeding for 4 hours, not like just kind of a slow drip, drip, drip.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought,
And it just wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
And so we wound up going in and they stitched it up. What would be, this is not the garden variety thing that you see
Yeah.
3 times
Yeah.
a day. It's
Yep.
the bad one.
Yeah.
What would you do in that situation?
First aid for tongue cuts. The first thing is to calm the dog down, get it to relax, get its blood pressure down. That tongue expands, the tongue also constricts. So if you can get that tongue to shrink up, that's your friend. So that's there. Getting them to drink cool water, because once again, the cold is going to constrict that tongue. Focusing on that. And then if it's still, the only other thing is hold pressure and get it stitched up.
Okay.
If you can't getting the dog calmed down, and it's hard because then it's like every time they start panting again, it starts bleeding again.
That's what we found. It would start to coagulate a little bit. It would slow down,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would lick,
Mm-hmm.
and right back up again.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like an axe murder in Traverse City.
Another thing I carry for tongue cuts in specific, but in general, but the idea of being tongue cuts is I carry a foldable e-collar, and I've got it stuck under. I've got the back seat out of the truck because I've got a dog box in there, and it's slided in there. Because what I find when they cut the tongue, you can get them calmed down, it'll stop bleeding, and then they want to start licking their legs because there's blood all over them, and that gets the tongue bleeding again. So I'll put that cone on so they can't lick themselves, and I found that's a help too.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it's a nice thing to have if something, who knows, an eye injury, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A split ear, so they're not shaking their head all over the inside of things. So, yeah, that's another thing I carry just for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got some bad ear wounds too. It's really bad.
Here's and well, there's that artery and vein that goes right around the circumference outside of the pinna of the ear. So any cut more than about that long is gonna cut right through an artery and a
We
vein.
had a couple males get into it and took a little pie shape, not pie shape, but U shape
Mm-hmm. Chunk out.
out of the end of the ear, and
Mm-hmm.
it was pretty bad. Before work, of course, we were downstate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's first thing in the morning, and it's like, okay, I got places I've got to be, but yeah.
Got to be work a half an hour, and my walls are covered with blood.
Mm-hmm. So, any other first aid questions anybody have?
do you, like, some people we know will give their dogs something kind of like a sport aid after, when they've been out hunting and stuff. Is there
There's not really any science to that. Dogs don't sweat.
water?
And you see a lot of people do that. They'll sell these doggy electrolytes and these kind of things to give them. Dogs don't sweat, so they don't lose electrolytes like we do.
So plain water's fine.
Plain water's absolutely fine. Now, like I say, I'm a big fan. Like I say, I'll carry honey. I had a client that almost drowned a dog down in Gladwin County, a trial bred dog, and they'd been working, and they had a ground on one side of the river, and they were working over there, and they went to come back. The dog's coming across the river and collapsed after swimming across the river. Unfortunately, his trainer's kind of right there and was able to grab the collar and scoop the dog out of the river before it drowned. But they brought her in. She had a blood glucose of like 45 or something at that point.
Scary. We had a dog that was prone to that
Mm-hmm.
a while back, and it's a little freaky.
Yeah. So I always carry these just honey packets, and like I say, replace them when they crystallize. And the other thing too is you don't know. I mean, you might be out there and your hunting buddy's diabetic, and he took his insulin, but then he ate a donut for breakfast instead of having bacon and eggs or something, and they go down out in the field too. So it's nice to have from that standpoint too.
Can you recommend like a first aid kit you can buy online, or?
There's a lot of good ones out there. I always put my own together. And there's a lot of resources online for that too. I think, which is the one I've looked at? I think the one, is it Paradigm that's partnered with Final Rise, I think, on the first aid kits. That looked like a nice kit. But there's a lot of them out there. Yeah. Yeah. Another big thing people do when they're out hunting that's a big error. You've got the older dog go hard all day and they're sore, or they do something out there and they come up limping or what have you at the end of the day, and they want to pop a carprofen or whatever their anti-inflammatory choice is down that dog. Oh, he's sore. We'll give him a carprofen. Well, at that point, the dog's body temperature is still mildly elevated. Their hydration is not 100% at this point, and you just really kicked that dog's kidneys hard. So I tell folks that if you need to give an anti-inflammatory for an injury out in the field, or it's just the old dog that gets sore and needs something at the end of the day, wait till you're back to the cabin or what have you. Everybody's cooled down. They've had plenty of water. They're well hydrated, not panting anymore before you do that. You don't want to do that when their temp is up and they're borderline hydration. That's a big error a lot of people make too. Yes, ma'am.
Snake bites, like we were talking,
Mm-hmm.
because I just moved back here, so, and I take the dogs out the back door and there's quite a bit of property back there. So I don't know how they're going, because I have a puppy, I have three different dogs, three different ages, different kinds. So is there anything, if they come across something and they get bit, what would you like me to do?
The only poisonous snake we have is the Misaki rattler, and they're not very poisonous. They're like, I guess they're not even as bad as like a copperhead bite, from what I've been told. They're a very small snake. They're incredibly reclusive, and the odds of a dog running into one, as I understand it, is slim. Uh, so yeah, so you probably don't need to really worry about that. What I will do for snake bites is, once again, calm the dog down. The more excited the dog is, the higher the heart rate, the higher the blood pressure, venom is being pumped throughout the body. Okay. I use diphenhydramine, Benadryl. Okay. Which is it depends on who you read as far as like the emergency medicine folks, if antihistamines are helpful or not. Steroids used to be steroids. They're contraindicated, we found, though, and can do more harm than good. But the diphenhydramine, does it really help because of the snake bite? There can be an allergic component to the snake bite, but it also is going to calm the dog down and lower the blood pressure and get it to relax. Most snake bites really are pretty minor, and don't cause issues. And I'm talking about even like, water moccasins, rattlesnakes, things of that nature. Most of them are not too bad. It depends on the weather and the time of day and when the snake last fed. Snakes accumulate toxins. So if it's warm weather and the snake's been hunting, they're probably not going to have a lot of venom. Okay. If it was 35 degrees last night and it's been cool the last couple of days and now we got a little warmer, sunnier day, that snake's going to have a lot of built up toxin. And that's when you get bad bites. But diphenhydramine, and then unless you have a place that has antivenom, which is few and far between, then it's the antivenom and supportive care. You treat them for shock, IV fluids, colloids and crystalloids, supportive care, secondary antibiotics, because a lot of times snake bites get infected and get septic. So
They can come visit you.
yeah, they need to be in an ICU somewhere if it's a bad one.
Is there any other emergency vet services other than Saginaw and Traverse City, or any that you know of that may be opening up?
There's a second one opening up in Saginaw, I know. Up in Alpena, there's kind of an urgent care clinic. I think they're open till 7 in the evening, maybe 9 a couple of evenings, and I think during the day on the weekends. But they're not going to hospitalize. They're not going to get into anything surgical or anything like that. Like I say, I know there's another one open in Saginaw. Somebody just said something about there being one going in Bay City. But as far as up this direction, no, not yet. Yeah, unfortunately, which is, and it's a real problem. And the big problem is you would never be able to staff an emergency clinic up here. We can't get enough general practitioners. I mean, it's hard. I've been trying to hire doctors for up here since 2016, 2006. Yeah, 2006 is when I've been looking for doctors, and I could employ 3 or 4 more full-time doctors and keep them busy. I just can't even get anybody to interview up here.
Seems to be a big turnover in a lot of practice.
There has been. I know Grayling just lost a couple doctors recently. I think they moved to Florida. This winter pushed them over the edge. But and there, there's a lot of factors going into it, and we can talk about that a little bit. Veterinary medicine is changing, which makes me glad that I've got one foot into retirement now. It's changed a bunch. Currently, 75% of all emergency practices and all specialty practices are owned by groups, owned by corporations.
So the private equity is coming in and buying the thing though.
Yeah, so 75% of all of the big hospitals are already owned that way. And it's pushing 50% of private practices now. And there's a lot of reasons that's going on. The model I grew up with in veterinary medicine is you graduated, you worked here, there, and yonder, and then you decided, hey, I like it here. I like this practice. I'm going to stay here. You became a partner. You retire as senior partner. You become an owner. And then eventually you bring an associate on that will buy you out. That unfortunately has changed. That you're going to be hard pressed to find a doctor under 40, maybe even 45, that has any interest in business ownership. They just aren't interested in it anymore. And so that creates a lot of issues. So you end up with and I sold my practice to a group in 2022, and it's the only way I'd ever be able to retire is I just have to work. And in fact, my original goal was to retire June of last year, which would have been 30 years even. And I didn't. And the biggest reason is because if I retire, half the staff that I've been working with and that I've built and trained is going to end up laid off because there's no doctor to do the work. I'm going to leave a big hole for my clients to not do it. So it's, you keep hanging on until you hopefully somebody comes in there, but it's not happening.
So is that regional, more of an issue regionally, like in areas like this?
It's an issue nationally.
So I mean, there's better coverage in Florida than Northern Michigan.
In there are pockets that are very popular. I mean, you go down to like Grand Rapids, Lansing, you probably can't throw a rock without hitting a veterinarian. There's tons of them, and there's areas that people want to be in is what it boils down to. The other factor that goes on, and there aren't any millennials in the room, so I'll say it. Currently, when I started practicing, when I started practicing, what we ran into was it was common. A common work week was 60 hours. I mean, that was kind of a full-time job, was a 60-hour work week. And I had plenty of 60, 80-hour work weeks. And what we're finding with the younger doctors now is they are demanding, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but they're demanding, 32 to 35 hours as a full-time job. And so I'm replacing a baby boomer or older Gen X doctor that's used to working, 40 hours a week is just hitting stride, and you might get 60 sometimes. I'm replacing one of those. I have to have 2 doctors to replace them. And that's an issue we're seeing throughout the profession right now as well. So and like I say, I'm not saying it's, and we all killed ourselves and, didn't see our kids enough and, didn't do all these things enough that we should have. And I had too many bird dogs that didn't get hunted the way they should have got hunted because of it. And so what we did wasn't right, but now we've had this, and I'm not saying this is wrong the way it is now, but you're going from here to here in basically a generation within the profession, and the profession just hasn't been able to adjust.
Are there any like technician type positions that can sort of
Not in
that niche?
not in Michigan.
Nurse practitioner?
Yeah, not in Michigan.
Okay.
In Michigan, and they have licensed vet techs or certified vet techs, depends on the state, is what their title is, and depends on the state on what they can do. In Michigan, they really can't do anything, which is a shame. And one of my technicians actually teaches the tech program over at Baker, and I told her, I said, I don't even understand why anybody would go to the trouble to get their tech license in Michigan because you can't do anything more than a assistant can. And there's states where they can like close, they can't make a surgical incision, they can't, go into a body cavity, but they can close after the surgeon's done. That right there saves a doctor 15, 20 minutes while they can be halfway through their next surgery while they're closing that one. Um, they can do some simple appointments can be done by LVTs, but once again, in Michigan, they can't. And so it varies a lot state by state. Um, Colorado did just create and I can't remember what they called it, but essentially it's the veterinary equivalent of a PA or a nurse practitioner. So they're kind of an interim kind of thing. And that's been controversial. There's been a lot of people in the profession that have been for it and a lot of people that have been against it. So we'll see. I mean, and they just passed that last year, so there's not even anybody graduated or trained to do it. So we'll have to see. So there's a lot of changes that are going on in the profession, and that creates a lot of issues for pet owners because, like I say, when you've got, we've got enough doctors, but they're working, less hours, then you functionally don't have enough doctors. And so it's a very, very weird place that we're at right now in the profession. And then, like I say, you get, corporate money come in and they change structures, and sometimes they listen well to the former owners and sometimes they don't. And you get business people trying to run that, much like we have in human medicine. We've got insurance companies and whatnot, that doctors are oftentimes stuck listening to on how they practice. So that's kind of where we're at in medicine right now, unfortunately.
That's why I told him no hunting the dogs on the weekends.
Ironically.
Yeah.
hmm Yeah, I mean, Bay Area does a great job. I've had my own dog up to Bay Area, but it's just a hike.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's why we had to take Ranger and get his tongue fixed on
hmm
the weekend.
Yeah, and and I look at it, when I go to the doctor, I'm driving to Traverse City myself, so I figure it's the same kind of thing. So that's that. You had asked some questions earlier about ticks,
Yes.
and ticks are a great thing to talk about. We have lots and lots and lots of ticks up here.
Yes.
Couple to dispel a couple myths. Ticks do not die in the winter. About 75% of ticks will overwinter, no matter how cold it is. They just go into a hypobiotic state, slow down and stop wherever they're at. If it gets over freezing, especially if there's a little sunshine, they can crawl out of the snow and start feeding. So they are tough little buggers. We, when I moved up here in 2003, we really didn't have ticks really in this area. It's become more and more and more ticks in the area. Probably, yeah. Could be, yeah. Well, the turkey should be eating them though. So we've had more and more ticks. Largely was dog ticks were what I was initially seeing. Over the last 5 to 7 years, I'm seeing more and more and more deer ticks, Ixodes ticks, which are the ones that are the bad ones about transmitting Lyme. This part of the state, about 1 out of every 15 dogs tested will test positive for a tick vector disease. And that's an antibody positive, so exposure doesn't mean they have the disease. You get to the western part of the state along Lake Michigan, those counties, it's 1 out of 5 right now. So it's tough.
What do you think about permethrin?
Permethrins do a good job. Two problems with permethrins. They're kind of toxic. Some dogs don't do well with them, especially smaller dogs. They'll kill a cat. So, if yeah, I was gonna say, so if your dog's friend is a cat, that doesn't work real well. Because we used to sell some permethrin spot-ons and stuff, and we would have situations where they would have it on the dog, and it's like, oh yeah, every time the dog gets off the bed, the cat's diving on the bed, and you'd see the cat for permethrin toxicity next thing you know. Now, flumethrin is a permethrin. Flumethrin is what's in Seresto collars. Okay. My protocol of choice for my dog right now for ticks is a Seresto collar coupled with an isoxaline, one of the oral flea and tick products. The oral flea and the reason I do the Seresto collar with it, I don't worry about my dog getting disease if they're on an isoxaline because it's going to kill the tick before it can transmit the disease. Okay, and which is what you wanted. But there's going to be ticks, and ticks are going to come in the house, and we don't have anything to keep us from getting these diseases. So so I like to use a Seresto collar along with one of the chewables. And it works well. I haven't seen my dog hasn't been bit by a tick since I've gone to using both of them together. And I'll see a rare tick here and there, like crawling around on him.
I used to go down Tractor Supply and get that stuff they used to mix up and use in the barnyard.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a sprayer on the back of my tractor and I just sprayed property.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to work real well for as long as my wife let me do it.
Yeah. Yeah. They work, permethrins work really good. And like I said, that,
But, yeah, as opposed to a topical thing, it's a different situation.
mhm.
Actually, I don't.
Yeah, the problem with topicals is that most like fipronil frontline, okay, it's a good product. It kills ticks, not as fast as the chewables, but it'll kill them. It's not waterproof. It's water resistant, and two things go on. Every time they get wet, the concentration of it's going down. So by the time you're a month out, there's probably none left. And does any of it distribute all the way down to the feet? Maybe, maybe not. But every time they go out to go to the bathroom, they're walking around the wet grass. Okay, so it's getting washed off of the feet. And your nymph and larval stages of Ixodes ticks like to get in between toes. So that's kind of a problem there with it.
Do you give the orals all year or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've seen ticks in January. I mean, they're out there and they can be there. And two, now that you're seeing the orals, the flea and tick combined with the heartworm, American Heartworm Society recommends year round. And I'm taking down Christmas lights, okay, it's a little bit warmer, this weekend. I'm going to take the Christmas lights off of the house and you're on the ladder up under the eave and there's mosquitoes. Mhm.
We use Sentinel and Brevecto. I forget which one's for ticks.
Brevecto's flea and tick, yeah. And then Sentinel is
So that's
yeah, that's a good combination. Are you doing your Brevecto monthly or every 3 months?
3 months.
It's not going to cover it for you. They and you can look at data any way you want to, but if you look at the data, like NexGard versus Simparica versus Brevecto, and Brevecto, it's kind of like some funny math with their things. So you're not gonna have good enough control at 3 months to keep.
So monthly or is that 60 days?
Anyway, it should be monthly really when you look at the pharmacokinetics of it.
If you get a
But
consignor.
well, that's the thing. I was gonna say I would switch if I was doing it monthly. I wouldn't use Brevecto because it's just so it's priced to be given 4 times a year, to be the cost of what the other ones are doing them monthly. Yeah. So
Suggestion would be that.
I like Credelio and NexGard. Yeah. The other thing too that you'll see is the more like there's Credelio Quattro now, there's NexGard Combo, there's Brevecto has one too. I can't remember what it's called, but where they've got the heartworm, flea and tick, intestinal worms, all of that into one chewable. Dogs hate them. And it's because they're artificially flavored because of allergy dogs. And they're just putting more and more and more chemicals into one chewable. They just can't hide the flavor of them. So that's,
Yeah, I got to poke him now.
yeah.
She doesn't need it. We got to push him in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talked about like cedar wood stuff. I played around with that for the ticks that are on the surface, and I didn't see any response with it personally. Like I said, it made the dog smell good.
Garlic.
No, and garlic supplements, and there was a classic study done on this, and I think they looked at like 10 different garlic supplements made for dogs, and like a third of them had way more garlic in them than they said they did. A third of them had nothing in them, and a third of them had about what they were supposed to have. And that's the problem with supplements is you got to really trust the company you get the supplement from, because supplements, nutraceuticals, are kind of the Wild West. They don't have to do any safety or efficacy studies. You can make it and put it in a bottle and sell it.
What do you think of Joe?
Jope.
Joe, J-O-P. You know, Wade was it?
I don't think so.
Well, they have a joint formula. It's a daily, 2 times a day for a dog, larger dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a probiotic.
Yeah.
The joint thing seems to work amazingly well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good joint supplements out there. A lot of good probiotics out there.
Should you give your dog Cosequin at some, I mean, do you give your dog?
I use Dasequin, which is Cosequin's made by Nutramax, and Cosequin is like the granddaddy of all the joint supplements, and they've gone through like different generations as they found, oh, hey, this really helps with the joints. And this is a good antioxidant. Their Dasquin Advanced is their newer one. That's the one I use. I started it on him when he's 8 weeks old.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
So we just been giving it for old.
Yeah.
Old truck.
And I doing it as a preventative.
Oh,
I'm assuming that a dog that goes as hard as these dogs do, and like I said, with the stage of life I'm at, I've hunt 5 days a week during bird season, and he's doing 20 to 30 miles each time we go out. He's going to have joint disease. Dogs that go that hard can't help it. And that's why I started him on joint supplement and omega-3 fatty acids when he was a puppy. And then, of course, as he's grown, his dose got bigger. And you think about it a lot of times, and I'll have people that'll come in and, they'll have the old dog and it's all, moving like this and stuff. And they're like, do you think I should start a joint supplement? And I'm like, yeah, you're about 5 years too late.
We did. I did what you did. I was in Scosaquin or Dasaquin from the day we got her.
Mm-hmm.
When she injured herself on the ice and she was really lame for a while. And then, the doctor looked at her and said, well, she's going to need a joint replacement. Yada, yada. Meantime, because we couldn't get the surgeon with him, we had quite a lengthy between each diagnosis and when he'd actually be able to do the surgery.
Right.
Somebody recommended his joke stuff, and it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She cleared up. I mean, she was really mobile. She got her mobility back and then performed very well.
Yeah. What you're seeing with most of these newer joint supplements and kind of the traditionals like your glucosamine chondroitin sulfate, okay, and there's the jury's really out on if those do anything because of the biochemistry and how big the molecules are and whatnot. But your newer joint supplements, in addition to the glucosamine chondroitins, you're seeing a lot of things in there like antioxidants, things like methylsulfonylmethane, dimethylglycine, omega-3 fatty acids are used a lot. And those antioxidants reduce oxidative stress, which is what is causing inflammation at the cellular level.
I asked you, I mean, she got some dramatic results, but is there another, what's the other side? Is there another side?
Oh, like a downside to it?
Yeah, 2
The
years
main
down the road. or
ingredient
3
in
years
Joe
down
is
the road.
collagen 2.
Okay.
Collagen 2, it's omega-3s and it's curcumin.
Mm-hmm.
But the collagen 2 is, they think, is better than glucosamine and
Mm-hmm.
chondroitin.
Collagen has gotten a lot of interest and gotten looked at hard lately. The other one is hyaluronic acid. The big thing, the newest thing that Nutramax has put in, and that's the Dasquin Advanced, they're putting eggshell membrane in. You know how you crack an egg and it's got that bag in the inside. They're using that, which apparently is a high source of hyaluronic acid. So yeah, they keep.
Used for joint injections in people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Get that in my knees every 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a lot. I definitely think it's worthwhile. Is there a lot of science behind doing joint supplements? No. But I think they're worth trying.
So if it works, go with it.
Absolutely. It's all going to be anecdotal. And just because you try one joint supplement and it's like, yeah, I didn't really see much difference, try another one. A different one might work better for that patient too.
Is there an average vitamin complex of some type?
Just like a multivitamin kind of thing. If you are feeding a good quality pet food, they don't need a multivitamin. We take vitamins because our diet is imbalanced and
Yes, we do.
junk. And if you are feeding even a decent and I like to say I think that the junk pet foods are probably better than the good pet foods of 30 years ago. Okay, because we know so much more. But if you are feeding a good quality food, and it doesn't even have to be premium, you're feeding good quality food at an appropriate amount, they are getting all the nutrients they need. So they don't need a multivitamin.
How do you tell a good quality dog food? Is it like a ratio of hydration?
What I look for is two things. If you look at the side of a bag of dog food, there's going to be an AAFCO statement, AAFCO, American Association of Feed Control Officers. And it's going to say things like formulated, or it's going to say feeding trial. Okay, so food can get approved to market either by it's formulated. Okay, I get in the computer and it's got this much calcium, and if I put this and this and this, and I got this and that, and it fits all the numbers. And as long as it fits all those numbers, you can make it, put it in a bag, and sell it. You don't have to feed a bite of it to anything. And that's a formulated diet. Then there are feeding trial diets. Feeding trial diets, they went through that same process, but then they fed it to a group of dogs under controlled settings. They monitored for weight gain, weight loss, kidney values, all of those kind of things for an extended period of time, to make sure that it's safe and does what it's supposed to. So I look for feeding trial foods. Okay, so and the big thing, and I'm old enough, I remember this is about 15 years ago. Blue Buffalo killed a bunch of dogs because they are a formulated diet, and they had a formulated diet. On paper, it looked good. Feeding it to the animal, the calcium phosphorus balance was wrong, and it threw a lot of dogs into kidney failure. So that's and that's an extreme case. But I want to know something's been fed to something before I give it to my dog. Yeah. And then, so I look for feeding trial. And the other thing I look for is life stage specific foods. If you look at a lot of these feeding, or a lot of these formulated diets, it's going to say formulated for all life stages. Well, at 60, I can't eat like I did when I was 12 for very long anyway. And so I don't want to feed my old dog. If it's an all life stage food, essentially it's puppy food because it has to meet the minimum nutritional requirements of the most demanding life stage, which is growth. So basically you're feeding everything puppy food. And that's that's hard on the kidneys. That's just not good. So I like life stage specific. If it's a puppy, I want something labeled for growth and development. Mature dog, if it's a senior, I want something that says it's a senior food. So, I like that. So those are the big things I look for when I'm picking out foods. Okay, is those feeding trial, life stage specific. If I can find the information out, I like to look for foods that are fixed formula rations. Pet food manufacturers can change what's in the bag for 6 months at a time, and they don't have to change the bag. And that's something in the government regulations have been that way forever. And it's, so you have a drought in the South and the rice crop is terrible this year, so they put barley in instead of rice, or they put lamb in instead of chicken, or what have you. And they're allowed to do that for 6 months at a time. And I don't like, because then it's the same as switching dog foods all the time. So I like to look for fixed formula foods. I feed ProPlan. And ProPlan does fixed formula. They do feeding trials. They do a lot of research into their food. Science Diet, I do like the Science Diet foods. Science Diet foods, though, are formulated on the premise that 80% of all dogs in this country are overweight. So they make their food for fat dogs, kind of. So I couldn't find anything the closest thing I could find that I could keep weight on him with would have been like the kidney failure diet was the only thing enough fat and calories to it per cup. So that was why I went with that. They don't make Science Diet makes a food for performance dogs, but they only sell it to military and law enforcement, I guess.
That's Hill, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you have a year and a half and a 4.5-year-old, are they in the same life cycle or?
Yeah. How big a dog?
What's that?
Like, how big a dog? They're like,
The male is just over a year.
and he's 49 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's a hard
Yeah.
keeper. You can,
Yeah.
the pointer, you can see the hip bones
Mm-hmm.
coming out in the rear.
Yeah.
A lot of them look really gribby, but when the hip bones start to stick up too far,
Yeah.
let's fill this in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a hard time filling it in on him. And then the other dog, we've only got two right now. But we suspect has thyroid issues because all of a sudden she went from lean and mean and just kind of did this in like a year.
Yeah.
And her mother had the
Yeah.
same
That'd probably be
thing.
worth screening thyroid on. Yeah.
Yeah, we put her mother on it and
Like a different dog.
She
Mm-hmm.
was like 5 years younger.
Yeah. So I say if you're going to have a disease, hypothyroidism is a good one to have because it's easy to fix. So when you talk about life stages, if it's a large breed, which is going to be a mature body weight over 50 or 55 pounds, and it sounds like you're kind of right at that line, you feed puppy food till they're about a year and a half old, is current recommendations. Smaller dogs, you only feed puppy food till they're a year. So you would still be, so essentially a year and a half and a 4.5-year-old would be the same life stage.
okay.
But it sounds like in that case, though, you still might need two different foods.
Yeah.
We're hoping maybe when she gets out, doing a little bit more running, she's gonna get back to her. Don't know. her weight
Yeah,
was
she was,
last
we
year.
didn't do anything. I mean, we have way too much snow up here.
Yeah.
We're usually getting out
Mhm.
and, we're woodcock banding right now. So she is getting out some.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she changed radically.
Yeah.
I mean, she still has a lot of drive, so
Yeah.
she still goes.
Mhm.
But, you know, she just does not look like she used to.
Mhm.
Compared to the average dog that you see in your clinic,
Yeah.
she probably
Looks
fine.
normal. Exactly. Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah.
But to us, she's, you know, she looks significantly different.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like that'd be worth checking thyroid on her.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
All right. So I think that we probably have beat this to death long enough today.
I got
It's,
one question
oh,
on
yeah.
the trauma type of thing.
Mhm.
Or dogs are big trauma all the time. Limber tail.
Mm.
We usually just give Rimadyl or the generic.
Mhm.
Is there anything different or new? We see it. I've seen it every year for 25 years.
Mhm.
And that's what we've done. Is there anything that works better that can be different?
Tincture time. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just gracilis muscle myopathy. It's just a pulled muscle.
yeah, yeah.
So.
As it, you know, some dogs, we've had them have it for 2 or 3 weeks,
Mhm.
and a lot of times they'll pop out. You know, it'll be better the next day,
Mhm.
and it's like, you know, is there a way to speed the 2 or 3 weeks ones up in the middle of October?
Ice.
Ice.
Try icing it.
Okay.
Just to give it a pulled muscle for you. You
So
know,
just treat it like
any pulled muscle.
routine.
Mhm.
Okay.
Ice at the base of the tail?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's usually where it is, toward the base of the tail.
Would
Yeah.
they respond to, you think a dog would respond to massage in that area? I know
It's,
it's
gonna-
sensitive.
it's gonna help.
Yeah,
Yeah. It would definitely help.
okay.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank
This was real
thank you
good.
all.
Appreciate it. And, everybody come to the opener this weekend and we'll see you Saturday morning. Or Saturday afternoon. Don't make it too late because we won't be here. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
That sounds.